What is buffer time? What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
Hello, buffer timers.
Yes. Well, hello, buffer timers. We may have lost Scott, who is in theory hosting today. But until he fixes himself, I guess I'll take back over for a minute. We're
Once
here
again, in
today.
this case, is Star Trek.
Whoa. Hold on. Technical difficulties. It wouldn't be a show without them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to reset, Scott, because now I can't even hear you.
Figures.
Okay, well, while we wait, we're going to be talking about empathological fallacies from Lower Decks. We're going to be talking about hollows all the way down from Very Short Treks. I don't think there's any news this week otherwise, but I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and we're going to try this again.
I don't know. I had this feeling when the intro came up and it wasn't like running smoothly for me. It's like, is there going to be a problem here? And then you guys were frozen and like, nope, it was me. But yeah, as Dustin said, we're going to start off with the Very Short Trek and then move on to the main episode. But guess first we should follow protocol and introduce ourselves. I am Scott of the YouTube channel Opinions No One Cares About.
I'm Dustin from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
And I'm Vanessa, and I have a channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
Oh.
All right, now, assuming all that's out of the way, this first Very Short Trek, I forget, did it have a title? I feel like it did, but I never remember the titles of them. I just remember the
Hollows
content.
all the way down.
That makes sense. Because you almost get this religious... never mind. That would be a long... You know what? Forget it. It's a long cut, but I'm going with it anyway. Because the whole argument between... There's like this whole argument between like creationists and atheists that say, if the whole universe was created by something, then what created that, and then what created that, and that all the way down. So that might be where they got it. But in this case, I mean, we know what happened. It started off with, it looked like they were doing something from Enterprise, and that's cool. And then computer freeze program. It's like, oh, it's the ending of Enterprise that nobody liked. And it starts going like that, and then it cuts to its DS9, right? Because Quark is
Yes, yep. Quark and Garrick, and it goes to like almost the root beer scene.
Yeah. And then it just kind of keeps going from there until the end. Now, the question is, when exactly do you think this Very Short Trek went off the rails? Now, I'm the one to ask that question. I put it that way because, yeah, you can get away with doing this a few times, but it became the focal point of the episode. And there's just got to be a point where enough is enough. So what do you guys think?
I don't think we reached that point, actually. Not in this one, because we're trying to touch on like all of the Treks. Even the one with the P title that we're not really supposed to exist anymore. I thought that was really great to have Prodigy in there. But yeah, you can just keep going as long as there are Star Trek series to call back to, and they hit them all. So no, I think that really, really works.
I was just saying before we came on what that it was very TV Funhouse, very Adult Swim, where it's very disorienting because this is a very common plot device within Star Trek to sort of like back out of the scene and say freeze program. So it's sort of like it's all a dream type of plot device. I just pulled up a poem because you just reminded me of a poem, Scott. It's by Jorge Luis Borges, and this is what it reminded me of. Very last stanza of a poem called Chess. God moves the player and he the piece, which God behind God begets the plot of dust and time and dream and agonies. So it's like A very like holograms all the way down is also a reference to an expression called turtles all the way down. It's infinite regression.
Yep.
So there's like this endless Russian doll, nesting doll type of thing where
Matryoshka dolls, yeah.
Yes.
yeah, that exactly. So it was just funny that it kept going and going and going. I was hoping that it would go a little longer. But obviously after a while you run out of series. But yeah, I thought it was good.
And when you put it that way, it kind of makes sense that they sort of ended on Voyager, because Infinite Regress is a great Voyager episode.
That's the only thing I'll say. I mean, these are non-canon and they're just fun, so whatever. But I did think it was weird that like at first we were going in such a way that it worked in chronological order, but then it comes back to Voyager and Neelix, which I thought when we saw the teaser of Neelix on Star Trek Day, and he's like, you know, oh, computer, I guess that's enough. I thought he was going to be telling a story to Naomi, so I'm a little disappointed we didn't get like a Naomi Wildman in there. But at the same time, this is the best of the very short treks. And I even really liked the Enterprise, like, it's been a long road joke and tying back into the worst episode of Enterprise. Like when you can call yourself out and make fun of yourself, great. I love a good self-actualized joke.
Yeah, you take a step back though and try to look at it logically. I mean, you know, they're doing the Enterprise thing, that's great. And then cuts to Riker and like, okay, so Riker is watching a holo program of the original Enterprise. Okay. Then it jumps back another step. It's like, okay, so Quark is trying to sell Garak on a program of Riker watching a holo program of the original Enterprise. And I don't even remember what comes next after that, but it wait, they went to lower decks after that, right? Because they're So the lower deckers are in the hull, are on the holodeck watching the origins of the Romulan or the Dominion War, where Quark is trying to sell Garak on Riker watching a holo program of the Enterprise. And it keeps going on and on, kind of almost like the old lady who swallowed a fly.
Right. It's like surrealism.
Why?
To sort of do that, because it just like it's like a cold open that keeps happening over and over again. And that's what I think the humor is.
That's fair. All right.
Yeah, that's all I've got on that one. Enjoyed it. If there's a 10 out of 10 just among very short treks, this is probably going to be as good as we get. I think we have 2 more, if I understand it.
Yeah.
I just like
endings. Go on.
I just like to know what the point of it is, honestly, like of the collection of this supplement to Star Trek. Like
fun
like,
for the sake of fun.
Okay.
As far as I understand, there's no real purpose. They're doing this as a was it the 50th anniversary of TAS or something?
Yeah,
I believe is why they're doing it, but overall just fun for the sake of fun.
Did anybody else think Neelix kind of sounded like Winnie the Pooh? Because I did. Oh, bother. Like, it was very bad.
Oh, Eeyore. Oh, why even bother?
Well, yeah. So all in all, yeah, it was, I mean, definitely the best of the very short treks. And if you miss the other ones, you're not missing that much. Unless you really wanted to see Pete Holmes in Star Trek, because I did enjoy the fact that he was the voice of Captain Kirk in the first one.
I'm still not sure if that's supposed to actually be Kirk, but anyway.
Oh, yeah. Damn.
It doesn't look anything like Kirk. Like all the other characters look like their character from either TAS or just their character, and that one didn't. I got the idea it was just some random dude.
Yeah. Norman's got the right idea. The only animated short trek I like. Yep.
We are with you, Norman.
Okay, we did about 9.5 minutes on that. That's kind of amazed.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So how about we move on to the main episode, Empathological Fallacies, which is not only not a word, but spelled 2 different ways, apparently. It's just like a matter of changing a letter.
Yeah, Paramount, if you look on Paramount Plus, says it's pathological with an A between the path and the logical, and the title card here has it with an O. So, and you'll see different reviewers, like half the reviewers have put an O and half of it's put an A, and I guess it's all right.
Right.
Chaos is what you're saying. Pure chaos.
Chaos having to do with this
Literary
episode?
chaos.
All right, I gotta pull the questions back up because I was. Oh, dang it.
We got some betazoidy ladies this week
There we go.
with their tall
Yes, we
dranky
do.
drinks.
We don't know what was it explained as like they're like ambassadors or something, or they just needed a ride somewhere, or
They just needed a ride.
That's a very common, like what I think Lower Decks does really well is sort of subvert the sort of very ordinary things that happen on other Star Trek episodes. So like giving an ambassador a ride, particularly a Betazoid one, is an extremely common thing. But they obviously zhuzhed it up with the margarita daiquiri giant cups that you might see on like Las Vegas or New Orleans.
right. But yeah, speaking of which, so we got these three. What's this? Here's my hot take. T'Lyn keeps stealing the show. Yeah. She's become the 7 of 9 for Lower Decks. It is
Yes,
Lower Decks
she
fourth
has.
season.
I like
good
that
point.
analogy too.
Love it. T of Lynn.
I mean, T'Pol was also sort of put on the Enterprise as a sort of menial job.
But she was there from episode 1, as opposed to like, we brought in this new character that is now kind of taking all of the spotlight away from most of the other characters. And that's really fair. That's kind of what's happening. And at the same time, I'm here for it. So let's go. Voyager didn't get really, really good until season 4. So
A few episodes notwithstanding, but yeah. All right. So these 3 lovely betazoids, whatever, aboard the ship, drinking and hitting on everything that moves. Still having enough agency to like turn down ransom, which I thought was interesting. Like, no, I like my men hard to get. Like, okay. But anyway, so the behaviors of the betazoids in this episode, coupled with what we know of Loxana, does that mean this is just what we expect from Betazed women of a certain age? Although they did say later that they're not of that age.
Well, they didn't really. I mean, they kind of turned it down, but that was what Loxana did in Fascinations. She's like, "Oh, I'm not that old." I mean, you know, we all want to be 20 years younger than we really are.
Yeah, it's that stereotype of women not claiming that they're a certain age when they are, or something like that. And again, it's like it's the same sort of comedic vehicle that they used for Loxana, having no boundaries, hitting on everybody, sort of harassing whoever's in sight. And but this time they just shut them down instead of like going along with it. And when Ransom does accept their advances, it was just too easy. So again, it's just a subversion of how kind of crappy men act around women.
Yeah. There's one decent moment. I don't think it actually happened this way. It's just my headcanon. And it is from that scene right there in sickbay. Because Billups is sitting there all shirtless and jacked. And none of them made a move on him. And I think I know why. I honestly think they might have read his mind and known his whole situation where, you know, if he loses his virginity, he becomes king. And, you know, partly as keeping their cover and partly because they're, you know, good people, they didn't want to put him through that.
Though at the same time, they're some of the first to be affected by this because they're in proximity to T'Lyn, and they're what first set her off before she even sends the tries to send the communication.
Yeah.
Which that's a good segue into why were the comms blacked out to begin with? That seemed weird. I mean, we needed it for the plot, but Do we black out
Expects a little bit
comms
of
every
plot
time we
yeah.
give random people rides?
You would think with ambassadors on board, it would behoove them to keep them open,
Right.
to sort of like if something happens, it just there's no real other reason besides plot convenience, and there's usually some sort of like goofy, jokey reason when they do things like this because they know transparently when they're doing it. But in this, they sadly didn't really give like a funny reason, at least. So it was just like, yeah, comms are down, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, it almost makes sense later when we find out that the Betazoids are actually Betazoid intelligence. But like I said, almost. Because then, like, you shouldn't, if that's the case, if that's why the comms are blocked, then there's got to be a better way to bring it up, like, later in the episode so people aren't questioning it. Exactly, Julian. And welcome. I don't think I've seen you here before.
No, welcome.
As we're talking about the BIA, I like this one. Do you think Loxana was secretly a member of the BIA and her being annoying AF was just her cover? Because if it was, she played that cover so well.
If it's not, I think this is a great way to, just call back to Majel and Loxana. But I feel like I want in my headcanon now, I want Majel to make more sense. I want that character to be better than she ever was. So I feel like that would bring her up a notch. Like all of her eccentricity and all the crap that we had to deal with across TNG and DS9 for episodes, that it would at least, like, the character is doing something meaningful even though we're not watching much of consequence.
I guess I would sort of not, I don't understand the purpose of like acting that way in terms of like getting intelligence. Like, how does being inappropriate with people further your agenda if that's what your goal is? Because that just seemed to be her personality.
True. Very true.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is that simple, but I want her character to mean more than it did.
Same. I really wanted her titles to actually hold some kind of weight besides just like being obnoxious and having dominion over other people's personal space.
Fair. And it's kind of surprising it didn't come up in this one, like if any of these Betazoids were daughters of any major houses. You got some kind of rings or scepters you're holder or keeper of? I mean,
yeah, I was really looking. I was waiting for that. I'm like, where's the daughter of the sixth house here?
Right. Okay, so yeah, as we saw, everything starts going crazy. Everyone's just hyper emotional, I guess. It's a good way to put it. Whether it's one particular emotion.
I said naked time in a really annoying voice.
It's like, is everybody spiked with polywater or what? Whoa. Damn, Jet. Like I'm saying.
Yeah, Jet got a little freaky in this one.
Jet
got down with the Betazoids, and then he's dancing with Jen later, but then he's cowering under a table at some point.
Is that a Cardassian on the right? Like
That's
sitting
a
down?
good question. I don't think so, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another. I wish I could think of who it is, but there is another race that looks similar that has that same thing, but not quite the spoon indented into it. It's similar, but I don't think it's a Cardassian.
It's a spoonie.
But that's a good thought. Oh, Gannon.
Yes, Gannon, we know.
You love them tilfs. And good call on finding that picture in Talin's room. That's a callback to like Enterprise, the motion picture. I haven't seen anybody else that picked that out. Good catch.
I guess like there's a difference between Luxana and these in that like they treat it more like a spring break type of situation versus Luxana, who's just on the prowl herself. She's a one-woman band. She could do the damage of all three, you know?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, that's a good call, Julian. That I don't think that's who I'm thinking of, but they do look similar to what we're seeing here. It's close. Oh, I think I know who I'm thinking of.
Who's that?
Lieutenant Kwan in the episode of TNG where Troy investigates a suicide and then she almost does it in the end.
Oh yeah.
One of the dude that she's investigating. I think that's the race that we're looking at there.
Okay.
I'll pull up a pic.
Okay, yeah, but when everything starts getting out of control and Miglimu decides he needs to take on the replicator, was that funny? Like honestly, do we need Miglimu to have as much to do in this episode? That is actually one of my favorite shots because in the background, it's actually funnier that those two officers are fighting. Because that fight keeps going on every time you cut back to Miglimu, and when he pulls out the phaser, they're having a slap fight. They're
There's
both
another little there's another little thing in this specific freeze frame because it's only like 2 frames long, but if you zoom in, there's like the little worm pieces, they have faces and stuff. They took the time to animate this, but you can't see it in full motion. And I thought that was just little nice touches that the animators do in this.
Right.
Has this been an ongoing source of conflict between this character and the replicator?
No, this is brand new.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think I've ever heard him want something that was regurgitated. Like we've seen him eat, and of course he makes all the references to food, but
And
right,
yeah,
you don't eat human food.
I did think it was funny at first, but he spent the entire episode just destroying this thing.
Because I was thinking it was sort of like The Office. Like if this was an ongoing issue, he's just tired of this bullshit replicator not doing what he wants, and that's it.
right.
It was really interesting in the final scenes here in the bar that if you look in the background, there's like footprints on the walls and stuff. And right behind Miglimu right now is one crew member that looks like he ate somebody. Like I've got a picture.
There's somebody with like a little bit of a plumber. There we go.
Oh god. Oh,
Did this
that
dude
poor
eat
guy.
somebody? Seriously?
Is that Ensign Gary? Maybe he really should have been a research or an outpost scientist.
I just watched Hellraiser, and he looks like the guy, one of the guys that got eaten. Got the life sucked out of him. But yeah, that I didn't notice that. I saw somebody with like a plumber crack a little closer to the right on that last frame. And like right, like where that redhead.
Yeah. Hold on a sec. Just saw this. Julian said Livik appears in every frame with Miglimu. Now that's something.
I hadn't noticed.
Is that like a slightly hairy bullion in the picture before with the bra?
Yikes.
No, that's
the
that's
picture
a merp.
before it. Yeah, I was gonna say that's Sleepy Merp, wasn't it?
Sleepy Merp.
Mm-hmm.
Which also, like, I haven't seen any other reviewer catch this besides me, but that I think, where is it? Sleepy Merp and we'll just call her the new Muslim chick on the crew that a lot of people have been talking about. Not exactly. I'm not going to get into it for any kind of religious connotations, but the two of them are playing a game. And when the board goes flying, you can really see that it's very similar to this Star Trek the VHS interactive game. That's all.
It's funny that they referenced it twice. Like this is the second time because they had Martok.
Right,
Mhm.
Batleths and Banachs.
hmm I'll only say that like I'm glad that they had somebody with a hijab even in the background because like for so long on Trek they had like Riker and Tuvok say like you need to take off your Bajoran earring. So it's good that they're at this point not doing that anymore.
That is true. I don't remember, I got to say, nearly as much controversy springing up in the earlier seasons where there was a background character wearing a turban.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
It was like in season 1, I think.
At least, yeah. But for some reason, this was more controversial. It's because somebody on Twitter was like really happy that a woman wearing a hijab was represented, and naturally somebody had to come out of the woodwork and say Gene Roddenberry's rolling in his grave.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I don't know if you know this, but there was an Indian woman on the bridge in the original series with a bindi.
Yeah, that's the first Indian female to appear on US TV and have a speaking line.
When folks invoke the name of Gene Roddenberry, it reminds me of when people say, what would the founding fathers think? And it's like, first of all, they're dead. Okay. They're dead and it doesn't matter what they would think, honestly. And the Star Trek is bigger than just one person and what one person thinks of it. So even if if there was a reality splintered off that we're not aware of where Gene was anti-Muslim for whatever reason, it wouldn't matter. So,
yeah, that is a fair question, though.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, just like in modern day, I mean, you make accommodations.
Exactly. Okay.
Getting off this before we get
please
into any kind of trouble.
All right, so everything's gotten out of control, including Dr. Ta'ana, because we find out apparently there's a whole backstory between Caitians and Beta Zeds where the Caitians used to hunt and eat them. It's the first time I've ever been worried about a pussy eating someone else. Seriously, look at her face. I actually looked at her hand for a second. I thought she had 6 fingers. That was a little weird. Watch out for those claws.
Sometimes you eat the pussy. Sometimes the pussy eats you. You got to roll with it. Good with the bad.
So the thing is, was this just? I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to just throw in, like, oh yeah, obviously you guys are at peace now, but once one of you used to hunt and eat the other.
Well, what that
and even though we've known about Betazoids like forever, we've never heard this.
I mean, there's like Federation members who were at odds at one point, and they sort of like sprinkle that in as exposition. So it doesn't actually surprise me that something like this comes up. It's just an extreme example. The Salayans and the, dog people or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
What it tells me is one of two things. Either the Caitians developed on Beta Z, which I don't think so, or both developed space travel way earlier than humans. At least that's what I take it by calling it in the ancient times.
Right. That's fair.
So, a little bit of lore there. In just it is weird that it just gets dropped on us, but everything isn't canon until it is. So,
right.
Julian's comment is a good one.
Turns out, imagine telling a cow in 5 years. So we used to eat you. We're cool now, right? Yeah, and tell this giant anthropomorphic cow that probably looks a lot like a minotaur. We're cool now, right? Just pull out a face or don't make us go back. Oh crap! I was about to say something too, and I forgot.
I just wish this plot had gone a little bit further. I wanted T'Ana to actually reach the bridge. And then Shax can grab her and pull her back. But I wanted her to get like this close.
That was hilarious. Don't she pounced out and
It
he just
was.
stopped her dead?
Like, yep, nope, I got her.
The man can handle his pussy. Okay, we got a few more things that are
Thanks, Dal.
like the restaurant at the end of the universe. I hate that I'm a big Hitchhiker's Guide guy and I don't know what he's talking about. Del, can you clarify, please?
Yeah, I know it's Hitchhikers, but I don't really know enough about it.
Huh?
Or is it Doctor Who? I don't know.
No, it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I think Merp species might be the same as Vilix prey from Deep Space Nine. Names that budded and reproduced a lot. Yes,
oh,
it would.
yeah, the bud. Yes.
Merp and Big Merp and Sleepy Merp.
That makes a lot of sense.
Like, are they really assigning that many people from the same family to the same ship? That's not a good idea. Children have wings, but maybe they get little infinite. Oh, yeah, they could have wings. We don't know.
Could be.
Oh, that's right. And it was a cow, too. Oh. So, what Del's talking about, there's a literal restaurant that exists at the end of the universe. It exists until the universe itself finally explodes. And then the restaurant's time turbines bring it back in time to before it explodes, and they serve like the next course. And while the main characters are there, there's an actual cow that comes out and is like, I'm the dish of the day. Can I interest you in parts of my body? And like the whole reasoning is there are, animals that would not want to be eaten. So somebody came along and bred animals that wanted to be eaten and were capable of saying so. Deep cut, Del. Damn, I can't believe I forgot that. And I've totally forgotten where we are. Everything's out of, all right, everybody's out of control because Talin's all, yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's suggested that she has bendy fever, right? Or
Bandai syndrome.
Bandai syndrome, which is apparently somehow similar to Xanthi fever that betazoids get.
Similar, though the depictions that we've seen don't quite match because, yeah, the Xanthi fever looks more like what we're seeing in the episode, but it's being caused by Bandai syndrome.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Talin's not showing any sort of outward symptom of anything.
Mm-hmm. Also, like, isn't Bandai syndrome deadly? Wouldn't you be incapacitated?
Well, like anything, and it onsets, and eventually it's gonna debilitate.
Right, but I'm saying like the amount of influence she has on the ship, proportionate to how it affects her. It's like she's just this, signal giver, and she is just completely fine.
Pretty much. Looks great for 62.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I think I'm right. I think that species in the background that we've been looking at, I think it's this one from Eye of the Beholder in TNG.
Yeah.
Anyway, tangents.
Yes, let's have many of them. So yeah, everybody's going out of control, but Mariner still seems like kind of capable of holding it together, even though she spends a lot of this episode in like very close proximity to Talin. So why is that?
Plot convenience?
Yeah, I also think, like, could this be another mystery box where there's something about Mariner's background we don't know? Or
couldn't be too bad.
Or she's just much more in touch with her emotions than she lets on. Those are the other two explanations I can think of. But yes, plot convenience once again, because this person can't just be alone reacting and talking to nobody.
That is a very good point, Julian. Like Boimler and Mariner's age, like a lot of people's ages, Talin's former captain's name. Yeah. feel like it still kind of makes me wonder how old you have to be to like join the academy and then graduate, because if Boimler's only 25, I feel like it's only been a couple of years since he was out of the academy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, Vulcans are different though.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even, there's a couple layers here to Vulcans. For one, most of them don't seem to want to go into Starfleet. Like, it's more of a point of pride to, from what we've seen, to go into the science, what is it, the science directorate, science fleet, something. There's the word science in there.
Vulcan Science Academy.
Yes.
Well, it's the academy, but there's a name for the, the fleet. Anyway.
Oh,
The exploratory?
Vulcan Exploratory Fleet?
Something like that.
Expedition?
Anyway.
It's the Expeditionary? No, that's not right.
It's like a point of pride that they go into that rather than Starfleet. So a lot of them that we've seen don't go into later. But, I mean, Tuvok even went in his first time in his 20s. So, for the most part, I think it's that, it takes them longer to mature, but that's because their version of maturity is like being 50 or 60 years old to us for the most part. So, yeah, but it seems like they can go in sooner. They just don't as a whole. Cultural norms and all that.
Right. Are likely joining the academy. I was actually just thinking that, Julian, because forget that Mariner has a friend who's become a captain, and apparently they were at the academy together.
Yeah, I always thought that like threw off that timeline, because at first, in one of the early episodes, Boimler says to Mariner, like, we're the same age. And it's like, what? Because Mariner's been like promoted and demoted, and she's got somebody in her class that's already a captain, so what? So either that means Boimler's been an ensign longer than we think, even though it seems like the Cerritos is his first posting, or plot convenience. That seems to be the word of the day, even though this is one of the better episodes of Lower Decks.
Right.
I have a question.
Sure.
There was like a moment in the show where we thought it was the three Betazoid women that were throwing everybody off and making everybody go bonkos and swing from the chandeliers and that kind of stuff. We thought it was them. Because like I thought that they were sort of referencing Luxana's like the phase. And I wondered if I know that there's two men here. It's like I wondered if they were trying to make some kind of joke about menopause here, or it was just
I mean that's the joke about women of a certain age.
Yeah.
So
I'd say so,
yeah. There's a little sliver of that.
All right, let me try to guide this back onto the rails. Okay, so yes, everybody's out of control until Lynn realizes it's about her, and she gets her awesome monologue where she doesn't feel like she's Vulcan enough. Thank you, Anton. Can always good to use a good Moopsie reference.
Oopsie.
Then after a pep talk from Mariner, we get what was easily, the funniest line. To Lynn saying, by the transitive property, I too am Vulcan as a motherfucker. That will never not be funny to me.
No, it's just generally one of, after all of the build up of Vulcans just being this like flat, low affect, we don't use colorful metaphors characters, and to finally pay that off with like the ultimate swear word. Fuck yeah.
Nice.
Motherfuck yeah.
Vulcan.
Well,
Major fuck yeah.
I think it was because like Mariner realized that like the way that T'Lyn was treated on her last ship was bullcrap. Because all she did was admit at one point that there may have been a decision guided by instinct, and then that her entire career was torpedoed. Like how all it took was one statement for everything that she had worked for to that point to be completely destroyed and sent to a Starfleet ship. So as a punishment. So I just can't imagine supporting that kind of decision is reasonable. And of course, Talin is
Right.
going to, because Vulcans are the most judgmental, not like taking people down a peg kind of people. Of course, Talin is going to internalize that as like, I'm not Vulcan enough, very similar to Spock. And so even Vulcans, full-blooded Vulcans, have the problem of being Vulcan enough, because
Right.
Spock was half Vulcan, had that issue, and this person got kicked off of a ship. And that's like basically the equivalent of getting fired from a job. And that feeling of like, I'm not good enough, it hurts.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, I feel like Mariner sympathizes because she can see herself in Talin, just like we all have, because ever since Wage Douche, people have been calling her the Vulcan Mariner. You know, she doesn't fit into the mold. She's going off operating on instinct, which kind of feels like, you know, it suits her more to be on a Starfleet ship than a Vulcan ship. I mean, clearly, because even with everything that was going on this whole time, you know, she was finally able to, you know, figure herself out and, by extension, regulate the emotions of everybody on the ship. Love that neutral zone bit. Nice. Everybody, it kind of seemed, except Tendi, because, like, why does she still seem so out of control at the end of the episode? Case in point.
I mean, Tendi is the most, as Talin pointed out earlier in the season, she is very excitable. But
yes,
this is over the top for Tendi. It's like she's still drunk on Talin here. Maybe, I wonder if there's some kind of like leftover remnant of what Talin was broadcasting, and like now Tendi is bonded to her, I guess, for lack of a better term, and she's like obsessed.
I get the sense that Tendi in general, because of her friendship with Rutherford and the other lower deckers, that nothing gets her psyched faster than the promise of future hangouts and friendship. Like, friendship gets this person jacked like nothing else. So I think that's honestly just pure dopamine. Just like, oh my God, we get to be buddies. Like that would be overwhelming for someone like that.
Yeah, I love this shot because the way you have this set up, Dustin, it makes look like Rutherford is holding the Voyager.
Oh my God!
It's like he's like running around, flying it around like a toy. We're going to the Alpha Quadrant. But yeah, I mean, we've seen before that. Wow, I didn't realize how much Tendi looked. Tendi actually looks like she's gonna cry in this, but anyway,
she is crying.
She looks like she is crying out of happiness.
Right. Yeah. But we've seen before how Tendi has this almost pathological need to be liked, to like be friends with everybody. And yeah, you could kind of see from that how, like, you know, Talin's projection made it an empathological need. Oh, we're bringing it back to the title.
I think Julian's question about why we would go through the neutral zone is a good one.
Yeah, I want to go back to that when we finished this.
There's absolutely nothing to disprove that the Betazoid women were not to blame, but why?
Yeah.
Why would you go through the neutral zone? Well, they kind of concluded that the Betazoid women were causing the issue without running any tests. They just sort of made the assumption, and then Talin ran tests and realized that it was Bondi syndrome, and that's why. Why would they go through the neutral zone, though? I mean, I'm guessing that maybe Talin messed with their ability to make sound decisions. So,
Totally possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dustin, you're obviously the one that brought up this map. Where is Beta Z
relative to that?
Yeah, because like they were on their way
in a little bit.
Oh my gosh, we could get into this because they were going from Angel 1 to Risa, but found the need to cut through the Star Empire on the way to get back to Beta Z instead.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try to find Angel 1, but if you can see down in the lower left, that's actually Cardassian territory. It says demilitarized zone. Basically, the very lower left, just above that border, is Beta Z, which is why Beta Z got taken over during the Dominion War, because it's really close to the Cardassian border. So you can see the Romulans. It's basically completely on the other side. There's no reason to ever go through the Romulan Empire to get back to
Yeah.
Beta Z. Or to Risa. Risa is just basically, if you look in that quote unquote center point where the circles radiate out, and you go
Mhm.
down, Risa's down towards Beta Z, but like right on that middle line.
Okay.
It's really hard to say without being able to like map this out and point at it, but
Right.
yeah, it's all there. It doesn't make sense though.
No, not really. Okay. Now, we've spent a lot of time on the main plot of this episode, which would make more sense if it was one of the previous episodes we've done, because they've really seemed to have put a lot into the A plots and kind of skimped on the B plots. But this B plot, this one was actually pretty good. Concerned Boimler and his need to just totally chill out. And we get a good look at how, the security of the starship isn't just focused on protecting the physical health of the crew members, but the mental health as well. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this is the first time this whole season that the B plot has actually worked. And more than that, the B plot feeds into the main plot. Oh my
Indeed.
God, plots that overlap and work together.
Where like Shax is sort of sequestering Boimler, so his explanation as to why it hadn't affected him makes much more sense.
Indeed.
I do. I just sort of think it's funny. Again, a bit of a plot convenience, but it's sort of fine that at the end, it's only at the end that he says, "Oh yeah, we're doing this for your well-being." He could have just said that from the beginning. But then we wouldn't have this B plot. And I do think like it's a serviceable B plot. And Shax is sort of like the right combination of tough and squishy for it to make it work.
Right.
Side quest to answer what Ganon's saying here. It's just that all the other empires are kind of in their own little circles and they're easier to see. The Federation takes up a lot of the map. It's just spread out more over more territory. It's
true.
weirder, but they definitely have the bigger territory. And they go like almost around the Romulan Empire over on the other side into the Beta Quadrant. So they've got a ton of territory to be able to have to get to need these big ships. Where the Klingons and the Romulans and the Cardassians, they have a kind of self-contained small space.
Right. I just also, you have to remember, like each of those stars is like one planetary system. It's not to scale. It's not
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of space there that isn't like completely appreciated.
And that's a two-dimensional map of like stars can be like basically on top of each other when you're looking top down at the galaxy.
Right.
Unless you go to the southernmost part of the galaxy, right? Where the half black, half white people are.
Oh.
Anyway.
Whoa.
So the security is like kind of in their off time. Apparently, they do slam poetry, play charades. I don't know what that means exactly, but
didn't they read poetry too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Worf. And apparently it's really helpful because like whichever Betazoid it was later couldn't read that officer's mind or influence her mind because you're so calm. But then like you can do puzzles and you can do tarot cards. This almost, when you put it that way, it almost seems like this is like a kind of like an after school program for kids.
And yeah, let me just go back to what I see what Ganon said. He's talking about the other Federation, Blaylock, Clint Howard's first appearance in TOS. That race, the first Federation, not the Federation. I missed the first part of your comment. Sorry, Ganon. It's hard. You see Federation, and anyway.
One more question. T'Lyn was sending out a telepathic pathogen to the crew. Why aren't the security team affected? Well, wherever they were, it was pretty far away. I mean,
Yeah,
it was like
They were
part
sort
of
of
the
in the
ship that
belly
Boimler
of the
was
ship.
and yeah, I thought it was weird that Boimler had never been there. I got the sense that Boimler is like the one that has been through every part of the ship. He knows it all.
Yeah, it even looks kind of different. Like there's like
Yeah.
almost a little bit of a different color scheme going.
It almost reminded me of the like half decks that Enterprise had. They're like engineering conduits, like not Jeffrey's tubes, but they're
Right.
bigger, but they're still not quite a full size deck. I don't know.
It kind of reminded me also of Battlestar Galactica, where you have this like downtime with the security officers or the people that are constantly in battle, because it's like they obviously can't just patrol a ship constantly and do nothing else. So it's like, what do they do in their downtime? They play poker. They just but like this version of sort of like military downtime is really funny because they do sort of like hippie-ish thing, like poetry, like tarot. I thought that was cute. But like as soon as the situation changes and there's the code red, then they sort of like jump into action.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the cards.
So, talking to somebody that's reviewed one of Star Trek's official tarot decks, because there are several. What did you think of these tarot deck?
I mean, it looks very, very like it's interesting how they have rounded corners. It's interesting. They sort of look like a writer tarot deck to me, which is a sort of standard issue. But I should take a closer look and maybe do a short on like some sort of research on what exactly this reading means. I thought it was funny that like Shax said, like they pointed out that basically
they all mean rebirth.
Means the same thing. And it can get kind of repetitive, but I'm really interested to see like what this actually means and like how it orients to Boimler.
Oh, that's true.
What do you got,
That's
Scott?
true. It could actually mean something. You know, he thinks his transporter clone is dead, but technically he was reborn. In a
like
way.
I see, like the
Boimler has been reborn as recently as 2 episodes ago.
Like
No,
there's
last.
Oh, yeah, here you go.
Like there's a couple of cards. Like you have the Magus in the world, and then there's like a numbered card on the very left. So yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what it means.
Yeah, you've got Celestial Temple
emissary.
Invasion, you've got Durna, you've got the Orbs, you've got the Borha, which we haven't even heard about since Ro Laren brought it up in TNG.
Right.
And the Emissary.
If that paved the way for Cisco to come back, I would scream.
This is the closest we're ever going to get to seeing Cisco.
Yeah.
Right here. And he's also upside down relative to Boimler. So like Shax from Shax's perspective,
right,
upside down. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because I mean, yeah, obviously Shax is Bajoran, so if his emissary is upside down, they all mean rebirth. It's like, I get it. I was reborn. Wait, this is a test, isn't it?
Well, I mean, technically, you know, one of them was on the Titan. One of him, you know,
right?
Or was like now it's. I wonder if we're ever going to get Section 31 reunification with the folks from last season, because Mirror Boimler's in there and maybe Peanut Hamper. Yes, and Shax. Shax,
yeah, exactly. Shax is reborn too.
Yeah, I wonder if there's. I wonder if that's a thing though that like either. I mean, if you believe in this as an actual thing, that either because Shax has been reborn, and if he's the dealer, he's always going to turn out reborn, or because Boimler has been reborn a few episodes ago, that now he's always going to get that as some form of reading. I don't know enough about tarot. I wish Dell was here.
That's true. Peanut Hamper is in the evil computer jail. My bad.
As far as we know.
But I do really like that idea about like Agnes and Peanut Hamper, and let's throw a Moopsie in there, and they're all going to be with Section 31 and
I mean, clearly Badgie's
stuff.
going to be involved somehow. His name's in a
Yeah,
future
season
title.
7 is like bad. There's 2 Badgies in the name of episode 7.
Yeah.
I don't remember the title, but
I actually remember I was thinking of it earlier. It says for a few Badgies more. I don't know why, but the title of Fistful of Datas came to mind earlier, and like those are both playing off like a couple of westerns, if I remember correctly. You just substitute dollars.
I told you I just watched the Back to the Future trilogy again yesterday for the first time in a while. And when we got to the third one, and they're like, Marty's walking into the saloon for the first time, and he looks up and sees like the whores upstairs. I'm like, I thought of Data as the woman coming down in that episode, and I even did the whole thing. Sheriff, you're as handy with a shooting iron as you is with a woman's heart. Anyway,
I only got like one more question. It's kind of minor compared to everything else, but
Julian has one.
and that works, Julian. Did you look at season 4? Did you look really well? Did you see Agnes in the picture? No, I didn't. Sorry, that's on me.
Nope, honestly, never. I didn't. I don't overanalyze the little things like that, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of knew. I mean, when they ended that one the way they did last season, we knew that Agnes and Peanut Hamper, they're coming back, be it this season or next.
Yeah. But anyway, as I was saying, this last question or two, if you prefer, it's about Kayshawn. So first thing, because it's not nearly as important as the other thing, when the ship goes to red alert, he went taking off with the rest of the security crew, running like Naruto. And what the heck was that? Is that how Tamarians run? Are they like, I think this says in Naruto that they run like that because that's like how ninjas run. Is like, so are Tamarians ninjas?
That's an interesting thought. I've never seen Naruto, so I don't know.
Maybe their heads are just aerodynamic, and that's just how
And see right there.
they do it faster. Mm-hmm.
Seem to be pretty good at charades too. A bucket. But yeah, then the second thing is arguably more important. Why do we still only hear him speaking Tamarian? Like, we all know
Not
he's Tamarian.
only, but yeah, we do.
It's almost
Primarily, it does
entirely.
seem to be the thing.
Yeah. And I don't think. I was going to say, I don't think we're learning much more of the language, but I'm pretty sure in the space of this season, he said both Sokath his eyes open and Sokath his eyes uncovered. So do those mean two different things?
Good question.
I hope that like when we go back to like the Orion planet, we get a bit of Orion lore, that we get more Kayshawn lore to explain, like, do they really only express themselves with 5 sentences? Or yeah, Kayshawn was doing their Naruto run. Okay.
It was running like the T-1000.
T-1000. Yep. That's really the only way to do it. In the LA River, with knives on your hands.
Okay. Let's see. I think that covers anything, unless anybody's got any more questions or observations.
No, we really dug into this one this week. I think we found some things that we didn't find going into it. So that's
I was gonna ask one thing. So the Betazoids, when they reach into I think to Lynn's mind, they pull out a memory versus like just reading her mind in the moment. Is that like a new thing for Betazoids to be able to do? Because they sort of like read thoughts as they're passing through your mind. They don't necessarily reach in and grab a memory. I just thought, like, is that like a new ability?
Yeah, I mean, I would guess it's just one of those things that we haven't seen on screen to this point, but they probably always had as an
You can't
ability.
really visualize mind reading in quite the same way. I guess like you could do a flashback, but with this, it was just very specific.
It really was, yeah.
Thank you, Captain Freeman. They pulled out a flashback. Yes. Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. And it saved the day.
Just
Oh,
with
I'm
with
logging in.
Freeman, I guess here's a quick question. So,
Mhm.
what did we think about the random LGBT moments in this one? So you got the Betazoids hitting on Carol. There's
Yep.
2 male crew members in the background just making out in several of the scenes, which I thought was pretty cool.
hmm
Hooray, representation!
I guess like the only thing quibble I have with it is it's always framed as out of control behavior or predatory behavior in that
That's
context.
fair.
Like that's not my favorite thing. Like if they have no boundaries and no ability to hold themselves back, that's what people do, and I feel like that kind of plays into rhetoric. But at the same time, it's great that it's just part of how people relate to each other on the ship, really.
I think I would agree with you there if this was one of those shows that this is the only time we see it. And it's like, oh yeah, it's deviant behavior. It's over the top.
Mm.
But we see it in other places. I mean, we've seen Mariner and Jen, which
Right.
that's a question in and of itself.
That
Where
was the question.
are we
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
going to get back to at least answering like what happened between the two of them, or just like that's it?
It does seem a little bit unsettled.
I mean, the lesbian relationships in Trek, especially Kurtzman Trek, just terrified of them. They reference them, but they're terrified. They'll fling them across space to not be in the same ship or end their relationship without any sort of acknowledgement that it happened in the first place. So hopefully that gets resolved, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Knowing this show, if it does, it'll be like a remake of that duel to the death between Archer and Shran.
I like that. That's a good thought.
With the knife.
Though this wouldn't be as egregious if we never touched on it again as the end of Picard and where in the actual fuck is Laris. But that's a whole different gripe.
Yeah.
Just knitting socks at home, like, I'm sure he'll be back. I'm sure he'll be back. Like, nope, he's not coming.
Oh boy. Well, in that case, I think we covered everything else. How about we get to some ratings? Best out of 10. What do you guys got?
I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's the best episode of the season so far. I think it still had some room for improvement because how many times today did we have to say plot convenience? And it was good plot convenience. It set up good plot. But there was some plot convenience, and other than that, and it took naked time and did it pretty well. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge. So 8, solid 8.
Okay.
I would say same. I think the jokes are really solid. I think the attention to detail, there's so much action going on in the background in the bar here and just throughout the entire thing, where there's so many places where your eye can go, and just the ridiculousness of the behavior of those 3 Betazoid women. And like this to me, like if I frame this as a sort of parody, which Lower Decks at its core kind of is, I would say like this is a parody of like one of those ordinary sort of boring episodes, but sort of turned up in terms of silliness, which I really enjoy. Like the stakes, like sometimes they just throw things in that don't really make sense in those kind of episodes. They're just mid and they're cramming ideas in there. And I dug it. I dug it for that reason.
Okay. Well, I can honestly say I did not plan this, but I'm also giving it an 8. I felt, this was like a good, fun episode, and it's finally one this season, apart from the opener that had both a decent A and B plot. The B plot didn't really feel like an afterthought. It was plenty of fun. Stuff got crazy sometimes, but at the same time, you get some really good character development for T'Lyn and an extra sprinkling for Boimler that hopefully, he will take to heart and realize that he doesn't have to be, perfect. Like, honestly, that whole line where he's like, "I'm a lieutenant, junior grade. I'm supposed to know everything." No, no, you're not. Like, that doesn't come yet. And all of that mixed together, yeah, that's made for a really good episode of this season. Like I was saying, I don't know, a day or two ago, I don't usually rank like the episodes in a season of Lower Decks, but if I did, this one would definitely be higher than the last 3.
This is my favorite season since season 1, honestly, where we have like actual character development. They're getting promoted. They have more responsibility. They're not just chaotic neutral, getting away with stealing ships left and right. It's like there's consequences for their actions that sort of like continue from episode to episode. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Right. And as to what Norman just had up there, I would argue that the first episode, you're saying Boimler and Rutherford need A stories. I would argue that them saving the ship, saving Voyager, was pretty decent for an A story. I mean, it is kind of up in the air as to which story was the A story, but
yeah, that one, the A and the B pretty much got equal time.
I just thought it was funny that they both dressed up as Mark Twain and like sounded like Foghorn Leghorn trying to work things out. I don't know. I know that's not.
We had a whole thing. Most of us didn't like that last week. Just in general, Vanessa, do you want, since you haven't been here for a while, is there anything you want to just touch on from the previous 4?
Oh, just that, like, I like that, Boimler is sort of coming into his own and owning his position. I like that Mariner is not being demoted because of insubordination, because they know that she's self-sabotaging, and they're like, well, not that nothing you can do can demote you, but we're not just going to take this rebellious thing as part and parcel of like who you are as a person. You're just afraid of success, and that's it. And they know it. And like keeping her on that track, it's like, actually, no, you can handle this responsibility. I think like them growing and maturing and coming into their own more, like the forward movement is really intriguing. And yes, this bit right here, this little frame here, it reminds me of like that episode on TNG when when they get like these like quarantine children, they're like super kids, genetically modified, right?
Oh,
yep.
And
Uh-oh.
Oh no! Did we?
I can tell if she froze or if I did.
Does
anyone feel like Tillen's great, but
yeah, we talked about that last week, Julian. That was one of my questions. Is she upstaging and pushing out the? Yeah, I kind of. I really like Norman's analogy to 7 of 9. I hadn't thought about it that way, but man, it's exactly the same. A character we're bringing in season 4, and yeah. But I like her so much that I can't say anything about that.
Oh, bummer.
You back, Vanessa? All right. Do you have any more to finish up?
Oh no, I just really enjoy it so far. I really enjoy how the characters are being fleshed out, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
What'd you think of Moopsy? That's the only question this season that matters. What did you think of Moopsy?
I guess. I suppose like the drinking of the bones is really great. I enjoyed it. Again, I watched Hellraiser. This is very much that. It's like a Cenobite, but like adorable. So into that. Oh, and Rutherford getting all his teeth knocked out. I cracked myself up. That was so funny.
Oh god, I'm just now realizing that Moopsy has a multicolored tongue.
Yes.
I missed that before.
Guess we're a little too focused on the teeth.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like, whoa, that's
drinking teeth.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's very lamprey looking.
Yeah. All right. I think, Dustin will throw it back to you for the outro since it is your channel.
Okay. Well, thanks, Scott. We appreciate your opinions. We do care about them after all. And we appreciate all of you for checking in with us this Sunday on Buffer Time. Thank you to my co-hosts and my host here, Scotty. And we will see you guys back here next week.
Right.
Until then, live long